Hi, my name is Eva, and I've been fascinated with the idea of God since childhood. I loved just daydreaming about the possibilities, and I continue to do so today as a devout agnostic. I love imagining all the possibilities of a supreme being. And today is my first episode of Devout Agnostic's point of view on different subject matters. And today's subject matter is fasting, Ramadan, and meal prayers. My family raised me Christian, and I was surrounded by lots of Muslim students when I went to high school. And as a teacher of English as a foreign language, I had the happiness of teaching many students who practice Islam. I was always very fascinated and impressed with their devotion during Ramadan, not only to not eat from sunrise to sundown, but also to not even drink water. And some of them would play sports close to the end of the day when they must be super tired and super dehydrated. And it was beautiful to see how much confidence they had in their faith to get them through such struggles. And that the reason why they forced themselves to struggle like that is to understand those who don't have a choice, to understand those who wake up hungry and go to bed hungry. I always wanted to try to practice it, but I didn't think I had the willpower, even though I had done some pretty crazy diets in my life. Finally, during the pandemic, I decided, okay, I can do the last week of Ramadan, and I'm still gonna drink water. Until the last day of Ramadan, I practiced also not drinking water. I thought the pandemic would be the easiest time for me to do it because I didn't have much of a schedule except for a capoeira class in the evening right before sunset. I noticed that I kind of felt lighter and better, and it wasn't as hard as I imagined it would be. The day that I didn't drink water killed me. Like, it was so rough, and I had so much more respect for Muslim people who practice Ramadan. During the pandemic, many people working in food services, harvesting the food and making the food available to us were dying from COVID, and supplies were threatened everywhere. And I thought it was a good time to practice living in terms of scarcity of food. That week of practicing Ramadan, it kind of showed me that normally I would eat at times that I wasn't hungry because that's when I would have access to the food, the healthy food that I love to eat. I would adjust my eating schedule towards my work schedule and my being out of the house. During the pandemic, I realized I didn't have to eat until afternoon. I had tried intermittent fasting in the past and failed, but during the pandemic, I just kind of woke up to make breakfast one morning and I wasn't really feeling like my normal breakfast. And I was like, okay, let me wait to see what my body asks me for. And then my body wanted what it normally wanted just many, many hours later. Then I started following the pattern of when my body actually wanted to eat. And then intermittent fasting became very easy to find the 10 hours a day that I really did want to eat. I could never not eat late at night. I always want to eat late at night, but with intermittent fasting, this wasn't a problem. And I very easily lost a lot of weight that I could never do all my life. I also decided to change my eating practices in a few ways, mostly for ethical reasons that actually ended up contributing to health as well. The first thing that I decided to change was focusing on my food while I was eating, because I would buy very healthy, organic, delicious food and shove it all into my mouth while watching TV or working or doing this or that. And I thought, it's kind of a disgrace to not be focusing on this amazing food while I'm eating it, to just be like absent-mindedly shoveling it into my mouth. When I was in Thailand, I was at a Buddhist meditation retreat. We ate what was given to us that was donated to the monks, and they taught us a prayer that they say before eating. And the prayer kind of focused on getting the best out of the food, since the food they got was donations and they had kind of no control over what they would get to eat every day. They focused on meditating to put the intention in the food of giving their body what it wanted. And I was like, wow, that's brilliant. I bet I could do a diet just like that, where if I just focus on my intention of what to get out of the food, maybe my body will kind of intelligently know to only take what's good from the food and leave what's bad to continue its way out of my system. I never played with that until I started thinking about eating more ethically. And I know that it's customary for people to pray before they eat, but I like to pray while I eat. I like to eat and recognize how fortunate I am to have every bite. I started this practice during the pandemic where I noticed some of my favorite items were no longer available in stores. And I decided, you know what? I should eat every bite of food like it might be the last time that I got to enjoy something like this. Like if you think about like a sci-fi apocalyptic type of movie where they have access to some actual real normal food that wasn't processed in a lab, and how much of a novelty that is. I like to kind of pretend that my food is like that now, where maybe this is the last time I get to eat an actual tomato. What if this is the last apple I get to eat? And give it the attention that it deserves. I enjoy being part of a community called the Maybe Logic Academy that all met in studying works by the author Robert Anton Wilson. And one of my fellow students and a teacher of one of the courses, Bobby Campbell, I think it was in a class with him, or maybe he's the one who recommended when we eat breakfast, kind of thinking of the trajectories of what had to happen to bring all those ingredients together on my plate. And I love this practice when I eat. Like here, I would think of all the vegetables in this meal, and the sunlight, and the rain, and the farmers, and the minerals in the ground, and the bacteria in the ground, and the insects, and the decay, and everything that had to lead to the growth of those vegetables. And then there were the people who harvested those vegetables. And then there were the people who transported them and put them on the shelves of the store and cashed me out when I bought them. How fortunate I was that I had access to those vegetables. Then I like to think about the combination of the foods together, and how I could have such colorful foods full of so many different nutrients, and all those colors in the fruits and the vegetables reflect different nutrients that they absorbed from the sun, and how amazing and miraculous just that process is. I also like to think of any of the animal products that are part of the food, like cheese or eggs or yogurt, and I like to generate blessings towards the animal that helped create the meal. I pray that it was always treated honorably and with respect for its life. I always buy organic, free-range stuff, and I usually try to get goat or sheep dairy instead of cow dairy, because I feel like there's so much abuse of that in the United States, and I feel like there's less of a demand for goat or sheep dairy, so I kind of hope that they haven't experienced terrible things to try to get them to mass produce. So I try to bless the animal that created the food for me and hope that it's having a good and fulfilling life. And I don't know if my blessings going backwards towards all of the creators of my food can reach them or not, but just sending that intention their way while absorbing those nutrients in my body feels like a lot more fulfilling of a way to enjoy a meal. Then I think about whatever creator could have imagined all the creations that I get to enjoy on my plate. In this picture, you can see there's a little speck of bread that I used to clean off the pan of anything that was left on it after I scraped the food onto the plate. And I remember my mom teaching me to cook. She had to struggle to get food for her family when she was living in Iraq. As a child, her mother's father was killed during a battle there, and she was so depressed by it that she kind of wasn't able to function as a mom. And my mom had to go out and try to procure food for the rest of the family. And she raised me to appreciate what we have when there are times of scarcity, and to know how to savor those very last bits on the pan. And she would teach me, here, look, this is the most delicious bite, as she would scoop it all up with the bread and give me that bite. And I felt so grateful that I did grow up with enough scarcity to be able to appreciate that goodness and to appreciate her. And as I'm enjoying my food, I'm praying and blessing all of the factors that came together to make that meal possible on my plate. In my culture, My family is Assyrian. We don't have a country, but we have traditions and language and stories that we pass on from generation to generation. And there are two expressions that we say that I think are really beautiful. When somebody creates a meal that we love, we say "Idach lem mara," and that means may your hands never hurt. I think it's beautiful that we appreciate what a person's hands make for us to eat enough to want to bless their hands to never hurt so they can continue making such delicious food. And when we make food for others and they thank us for it and they say that it's good and that they appreciate it or whatever, we say nanilach, which means may it give you everything you need. May it satiate you in every way. And I think that's really a beautiful blessing too. So now when I eat, I like to imagine that I'm blessing backwards all of the people who made the meal possible. And I'm asking my supreme divine unknowns to please bless all the people and processes that made the food possible. I'm asking the food to give me everything I need and heal my body in all ways necessary. And I am appreciating the ability to have all of those ingredients and that meal together and the ability to make the meal. And then I'm also considering all the people who are starving right now, especially in Palestine. I think this Ramadan must have been extremely potent for everybody, knowing that an active famine is happening in Palestine right now. And I try to hope and pray every human alive could have access to the delicious, nutritious food that I have. And if that means that I have less, I would prefer it than for anybody to not have it at all. And I recognize how fortunate I am to not be experiencing the suffering and the misery that too many are experiencing in the world. And I pray for some of that to be dissolved. I try to acknowledge that with every bite and feel the heaviness, the sadness, and the lack. The sadness that we have so much abundance and yet that abundance is not allowed to reach certain people. And I pray for the change of that injustice. Again, I'm Eva, the Devout Agnostic, and I like to share some of my practices in spirituality that I think make my life happier and more meaningful. Hopefully this encourages you to consider your practices while you eat. If you'd like to share any practices or expressions that you guys say in your culture or anything that you think is worth considering, please do so in the comments below. Thank you.